Hey, if you've ever wondered, can I become an entrepreneur? Do I have the chops for it? Is this fit for me? You know what? We're going to go through, and over the next few minutes, we'll talk about that. As entrepreneurs and business owners, we know that if we have a clear plan, anything becomes possible. And if you can have a clear plan, a clear process to create that plan, and a way to create clarity with your partner or spouse, you can drive to amazing heights. So when it comes to an entrepreneur, and becoming an entrepreneur, it's going to take a few different things. The questions are going to be around A, do you have the personality for it? B, are you clear where you want to go? And C, do you have the skill set to make that happen? So when we talk about personality, let's be clear on this. Some people say, oh, I hate my job, I don't want to be in a job, I suck at jobs, blah, 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 blah. But the reality is, these are the same people who are going to suck at being self-starters. They are not going to show up. And if somebody isn't holding their feet to the fire, they're not going to do it. So if that's you, I hate to say it, but I don't know that you're going to be a great entrepreneur. Unless you happen to have a bunch of money and you can surround yourself with people who do, you've got some pretty big headwinds. When you're starting, particularly if you're looking at doing as a solopreneur, it's going to be incredibly important that you look at yourself, that person you brushed the teeth in the morning that you saw in the mirror. That person right there has got to be 100% accountable for everything. That's success and the failure, the good and the bad. But here's the good thing. It has never, ever been easier to test, vet an idea, sometimes even get contracts, and it's never been easier to more safely transition into becoming your own business owner as an entrepreneur or as a solopreneur. So when in my book, The Aspiring Solopreneur, we have courses around this to help people walk through how to become their own solopreneurs. The question comes down to, well, do I have the personality traits? And that's where people are like, well, dude, I don't have a degree. Degree doesn't mean squat when it comes to business. Sometimes maybe you need it to get in the front door, but for the most part, most people don't really care about the degree. They care about the outcomes. What are you driving? Now, I have a degree in home economics, believe it or not, from the University of Wyoming. It has done very little for me. My first company when I was 18 was clothing design and manufacture. So it helped a little bit, but for the most part, the degree really wasn't the purpose of it. What I did do well, though, is that I like being creative. I like holding myself accountable. I love researching, digging in, figuring out where I can go. What can I dig into next? Where do I want to be with this? So when we think about those things, first off, do you have the personality traits to do this? Are you going to be okay at it? Now the second piece is, do you have a skill that people are going to value? And this can be a variety of different things, but think about what you're already doing. Are there things out there that you want to do that'll be fun? It's one of the things that makes my head explode when I hear somebody who's great at some sort of strategic advisory or accounting or something that they're really good at, that they enjoy, and they say, yeah, I want to go start a coffee shop. I'm just like, oh my God. You want to take something that you could make $400 an hour for, and then you want to go over and transition to where you make $15 an hour and you have to show up at 5 in the morning and you have milk that goes bad. No. Starting to step back and say, all right, first off, what are my motivations? Why am I wanting to do this? So first off, do you have the ability to do it? Do you have the personality traits? The second is being really clear on why are you choosing to do this. So if you're in a job or a position that's like, this really doesn't fit for me right now. I don't like this job, I'm not great at it, or I feel like I'm getting underpaid. I see we contract with other people that get paid 3 times as much. I'd rather do that, or I don't like my boss, or I'd rather work from noon to 8 o'clock at night so I can go exercise in the morning, screw around, or I want to go to every one of my kids' softball games. Whatever those motivations are, starting with the end in mind and being clear on what success looks like for you. What does life, if you could completely make it on your terms, look like? Start with that. So if you know you have the personality traits, you start to clarify, this is where I want to go, this is what amazing looks like for me, fair enough. If that's the case, then with the skill sets that you currently have, or in some cases, you may have to go out and build a new set of skill sets, what is it and where do you want to go with those? What are the things that are resonating with people? The type of works that you can do? Or do I need to go and get a whole new set of skills? If that's the case, it may take longer, but if you start building a plan, a strategy, a roadmap of where you want to go and how you're going to get there, it'll be easier to achieve it. So as an example, my wife, Rika, was originally a couples and family counselor. Or excuse me, she was originally an accountant for a VC firm in London. She happened to be great at it. She just didn't really like it, didn't float her boat. And she wanted to become a couples and family counselor. Backwards there, I'm dyslexic. So at 40, she said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go back to school. And we very conscientiously, very intentionally made a 5-year plan that helped Rika transition back to school. She had to work some jobs she didn't particularly like while she was going to school, but we didn't have the finances fully at the time, which then allowed her to transition into getting her degree, so she became her master's. And then, candidly, she had to go and work for other organizations for almost 3 years to get 3,000 hours of counseling under her belt. And then at that point, she could be fully licensed on her own. Once she was able to be fully licensed on her own, she was then able to go out and start her practice. And after 7 years of running her practice now, she's in a spot, beautiful spot, where she's, she works 3 days a week, about 15 hours a week, $2 to $2.50 an hour. So she's making, not huge, but 3 G's a week. That's not bad. It's a lot. It's more than she was making when she was working full-time for somebody else. She's in control, and she gets to do it virtually from our beautiful home here in the high country at 10,000 feet in Colorado. Now, that particular example is very, very possible, and Rika is very much a solopreneur. She's the one who's accountable for virtually everything. Now, we have help with bookkeepers and with some marketing and some other pieces, but those are contractors, and it's not necessarily who we are. Now, in this case, Rika knew she was going to be good at counseling. She loved it. But she wasn't exactly sure how it was going to market, how to get out there, what the value was, so she had to do a lot of research and build that roadmap and plan to figure out where she wanted to go. In that case, she had to completely shift. She could have gone out and done accounting on her own and probably done really well, but it isn't what she wanted to do. So she was able to pivot and look at this in a different way. So for you, the second component of this, first we identify our motivations, what amazing looks like, and do we have the abilities? The second then is, what are the skills that you have? Are those skills existing currently within you, or do you need to go out and refine them? And if they currently exist, there's ways that you can go out and test and vet that and say, hey, here's what I do. Do you know anybody here? Do you know anybody there? Is it overflow work? Is it whatever it may be? But you may end up starting to moonlight a little bit, stay very positioned where you are in your job, but then start moving over and over little by little. But then the third part is being very, very intentional with taking what you have and figuring out, how can I get other people who want me to do this job? Who is looking for what I can do really, really well? And when you know those things, and we start contracting with those, and you start building it, and you start creating a word of mouth, you can start to transition and roll in a very, very different way. It just means it'll start to take off. I believe that when we do this very safely, like I said, it's never been easier to start something so safely. There are ways that we can take all of the different factors and minimize the exposure. So there's ways that you can build an entire team of advisors for virtually nothing. You can start with an accountant. A good business accountant, not just a general accountant, but a business accountant, can be very, very helpful in helping you to define, this is what I'm looking at. What do I need to be aware of? How much should I insure insurance and all sorts of other things? But they'll get you started on creating what is a quote-unquote business plan looks like. You can then roll into, do I need somebody for insurance? How am I going to do my marketing? What sort of legal structures and things like this? Don't get overwhelmed with this. Every one of the people you're talking to likely is a version of a solopreneur. And as such, you're one of their target market clients, and they're willing to invest 30 minutes to an hour to help outline what you're looking for. But it helps build your plan. It helps create clarity on where you want to go and what it could look like. So with this, again, we have a whole program in the Aspiring Solopreneur. You can go to aspiringsolopreneur.com, and we've got a program for this. But you can do the balance wheel It's a tool in there that'll help you to define that very first step where we're getting started. So if you found this of value or have any other questions or comments, please don't be afraid of making comments below. And we'd love it if you'd subscribe, and we're going to have a lot more videos that'll help very specifically go through step by step what are we trying to address in these cases. Look forward to hearing from you. Keep smiling.